Hi everyone, it's Kasia from Tarot Map and welcome to another installment of the Inspired Tarot Map series. This time I'm hosting Sandy Hamby, and Sandy calls herself Energy Alchemist, and she works with people and spaces to, I would say, just raise the vibration basically and introduce pure love codes into the space and into or awaken that energy within ourselves. I let Sandy explain it further and more beautifully than myself, but welcome Sandy, and thank you so much for agreeing to be my guest.
Oh, it's so lovely actually, Kasia, because we said when we first connected on this for this call that it was like we had known each other for a long time, and yet it's relatively recent, so it's just lovely to come and share it today.
We are in the like we fell in love in the first stage of our relationship. We don't see any negative traits in ourselves yet.
No.
We love ourselves purely right now. Beautiful. Sandy, well, maybe I just quickly introduce how I got to know you. Because my friend Melanie, who studied with you, you know Melanie,
Yes.
she, once I was chatting with her on Facebook and I'm like spewing facts and being so angry and something, I can't remember now what was the issue, but I was discussing something that was really hitting me hard with Melanie. And she's like, let me pull a rose for you. And I've never heard about your deck before. So I'm like thinking, what rose? But okay, Melanie, let's pull me a rose. So she took your deck, because this is this beautiful Rose Alchemy Oracle deck, and she shuffles and she just pulls Rose 4, of course. Rose Angel 4, I think it was, or Rose 4, I can't remember now, but I think Rose 4 maybe for the liver. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what is this? Like, what is this oracle? And I'm the queen of tarot oracles. Like, I know every deck out there probably, or if not every, then very many. And she's like, this is Rose Alchemy Oracle. This is by Sandy. I study with her. And she's just read something from the book. And it was like so spot on. And of course, my eyes just went like, bing! Wow. It just hit me somewhere, like very deep when you have this like boom, instant kind of answer through the card or a confirmation of what you're going through. Yeah. So of course, like then I'm like searching online, so I, you send me the Rose Alchemy, then I purchased the classes, and I think this is such an amazing system. So I'm really wanted to get you online so I can ask you to explain more about the system to my audience, because I think a lot of women and a lot of men who watch this will be really fascinated by this, as I was and am. So can you just tell us quickly, I don't know, where do we start? Like, why roses? How did it all come to life? This is beautifully, by the way, I'm just going to show you guys. This is I did the review of this deck so you can see everything, but this is the book that comes with the Oracle deck, and these beautiful cards with golden gilding and beautiful rose images. So Sandy, just tell us maybe why roses? Like, how did you even get to this?
Well, I think the rose has been with me all my life. I had a fairly dysfunctional birth family, but I had a grandmother or grandparents that lived in a little cottage in the middle of the New Forest. And my grandfather was a professional gardener, and my grandmother was called Rosa Kate. And my grandfather had a rose garden in the front of the little cottage. And as children, we could run around this amazing, it was a tiny cottage now, I've been back to it to see, but it wasn't when we were children. And we could run around the rest of the garden, but we weren't allowed on his rose garden. And he also had a little shovel that he kept by the wicket gate, because this was what they call an unadopted road. So it wasn't tarmacked, and the forest animals used to go up and down the road, leaving manure. And my grandfather would be out there with his shovel to get the hot manure to put on his roses. And I can remember being aware, even at that age, that the roses were somehow blossoming, and all of this beauty and fragrance was coming from basically the manure of life.
Yeah.
So they were transmuting. They were alchemical plants, and my sister was rosemary, so I had another rose around me as well. And my journey through life took me to be a couture wedding dress designer for 18 years. So all of the women wanted roses on their dresses because there was something about the feminine and her beauty that had a deep connection with the energy of rose and the symbolism of rose. At the end of my wedding dress time, I then went on to explore working with spaces and interiors and interior design. But in that journey, I'd also trained as a Reiki healer, Sikhem, working with crystals, working with numerology. Once that doorway into the esoteric opened up for me around 1989, a lot of this stuff started to open up, and I did meditation and so on. Ultimately, it took me to a body of teaching called pranic healing, and I trained as a pranic healer, pranic psychotherapist, pranic feng shui, and into something called Arhatic yoga, which is a series of breathworks and technique, a synthesis of yogas really that develop the inner mastery of self. But life decided that it was going to take me on a journey, a rock and roll journey, coming out of the walking off into the sunset of the wedding dresses and the la la land, if you like, a bit of the wedding dresses, and the intensity that the women came to me in planning their wedding dresses and wanting the dress to be perfect and it all to be perfect. And in that process, I think the curiosity had become as to how did you meet your beloved? How did you meet this amazing person that you're going to journey with? And I realized that it was all held within the heart, all into the frequency alignment of the heart, and that was our attractor factor. So the universe, in its wisdom, and my soul, my higher self, in its wisdom, attracted to me a partner who was going to strip off all of the sticky plasters that I had put on my heart as a child, in my experience of my early childhood and the traumas in my early childhood, emotional traumas. And so I was in that dance of relationship and developing a whole new body of work with a partner when I realized that things weren't quite as they seemed, and I was getting sicker and sicker. But I noticed that there was a strong calling to go to the Alhambra in Granada in Spain. And courtesy of the Icelandic ash cloud, flights that we had booked were cancelled and we were invited to go somewhere else. And I said, the place I really want to go to is the Alhambra. And we were able to get tickets to go to the Alhambra. And I was really, if I'm honest, quite broken at that time, although I was highly trained and highly experienced in energy alchemy for other people. I had great difficulty turning the mirror around and taking time to deal with my things. So I turned up at the Alhambra with my favorite camera, and I walked through the portal, the entrance portal, into the pathway, and it was like I'd come home. It was like I'd landed somewhere that was really familiar. And I didn't even know that it was rose time. That's where I was. I was being stripped. Everything that I'd known of myself and all of the places in which I had created things to keep me safe were being blasted off. And I walked into the rose garden, and it was like the roses were speaking to me. I knew I had a connection with a Sufi mystic called Ibn Arabi, and that had been part of my calling back to the Alhambra. I knew that I had been there at the time that the Alhambra was built. Clearly, I was part of the design team there, but I also realized that the Alhambra is on a Venusian temple. There are 7 Venus temples on the planet, not in physical terms, but energetic. There was something that was bringing me home to myself. And I took loads and loads of photographs of the roses in the Alhambra Rose Gardens and came home, loaded them on my computer, and a couple of days later, there was a voice in my head that said, we'd like you to put 11 of us together and work with us. We have come to heal the Magdalene wound. We have come to heal the wounded aspects of the feminine in both men and women. And they invited me to tune in, collect these 11 roses that they had guided, and invited me to tune in to each one of those roses, to sit in meditation.
Did you know, like, because you have this kind of message coming through, and did you have this image, like, I'm going to make them a card? Like, did you know how to work with them? Did you even like go, what?
It was like, normally it's like, where's the coffee, but so the only thing I did go and say was, who are you, who's the voice? I mean, I've been dowsing since 96. I felt strong spirit guidance when I was working with Sekem. I feel Sekhmet very strongly. And I've had other guides and teachers that have come in and out. There's a strong connection to Saint Germain for a while. So it was like, yeah, and who are you? Who is this that's asking me to, is it the consciousness of the roses? And what I heard in my, internally, because I'm not clairvoyant, I'm clairsentient. So I sense things, and I'm clairaudient. So I heard the words, we are the Sisterhood of the Rose, and we have come to guide you. And from the Sisterhood of the Rose, what emerged was Lady Nada. And Lady Nada, as one of the Ascended Masters, for me is the overlighting soul of Mary Magdalene. And she is a Venusian light being. I.e., she originated from Venus, and she's been the guide all the way through. She has been the one that I have done automatic writing with now for nearly 9 years.
Interesting. The first essence from Ora Soma that I used, not essence, but I think it was Pomander, it's called.
Yeah.
That was the little Lady Nada, because I loved the smell, how it's just this little, it was very sweet, kind of rosy scent.
Yeah. So that's how it all started. And the original 11, they, I had no idea there was any more. I just thought that these 11 roses had come. They told me where in the body they worked and how they worked together and how to set a healing grid. So for the first 3 months, they guided me to work with them every day. And initially, all I did was I photographed, printed the photographs, and I was guided to lay them on my body in the chakra points, so that they created a healing grid. They created a balance, and the energy anatomy behind that first 11 was very much the foundation of pranic healing. Pranic healing works with 11 chakras in the body. And so it's unusual that it's not the normal 7. There's also the spleen and the liver chakra, front and back solar plexus, front and back heart chakras. And so I did that every night. I laid the cards on my body until I knew them so clearly that energetically I could put them in. I could just bring them to mind and put them into the different chakra points. And the process over that 3 months was amazing. That something was bringing me back home. Something was bringing me back into my body enough for me to start to make some choices and some changes that I knew were going to have. I was going to have to find this pathway out of this toxic relationship. It was a classic empath narcissist dynamic that was awful on one level, but the best of times and the worst of times, and yet was clearly part of a soul contract that was known over many lifetimes and was set in this lifetime for me to heal what they called the Magdalene wounds. And these 5 wounds sit in different chakras of the body, and they are abandonment, which sits in the base chakra, betrayal on the solar plexus, denial on the throat, judgment on the third eye, and separation on the crown. And when you work with those, what they do is they transform to the jewels. And, you know, as we come into our sovereign selves, as we come into the fullness of our queendom or our kingdom, we put the jewels, the actual substance of the jewels, the rubies, the citrines, the sapphires, the amethysts go into the crown, and they're part of an energetic imprint that allows us to come home to ourselves and to the heart. So it's been a process. So when I had come into enough of a mastery of these 11, they said, okay, now you can put us out as a workshop. And I'm like, oh, really? and I put a workshop out, and I had 11 gorgeous goddess women that turned up for the circle.
Wow.
You could not make this stuff up, honestly. And they were called the Way of the Rose. So it was the first Way of the Rose workshop was in October 2010. From then I moved. I moved physically out of the dynamic I was in, and I was then guided to go to Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland. And the guidance when I got there was that there were 3 master roses that wanted to come through, that actually sat on the crown, and they expanded the energy signature of the original 11 roses. And it sort of went on from there, to be honest, Kasia. I found that I'd get downloads in the shower. So I'd be stood in the shower, and there would be a voice that went, and there's another 9 of us that want to come together, and we're a Bagua. And I was familiar with Bagua because it was a feng shui term. But I'm in the shower having an argument. You know, can we call you light codes? Can I call you life codes? Can I call you anything but a Bagua? And they're like, no, we're a Bagua. And so that was one of the sets. And then there was another set that I'm stood in the shower, and they went, and there's 11 of us that want to come together, and we're the Rose Angels. And my initial response was, no, I'm going to have a rose that's Archangel Michael and Archangel Gabriel. And they're going, no. We are the Rose Angels that transform the 5 wounds. These 5 wounds to love. So
this is a powerful set, the Rose Angels. Yeah,
they're the pivot. They're the third set in the original 5 set deck. They are the transformers, because what the roses said to me were that each one of us as women incarnate at this particular time are carrying at least one of the wounds. Some of us came in with a complete set. And my understanding is that we come in as a soul code. So we choose before we come into incarnation what we want to polish, what aspect of this diamond of our hearts we've come to refine and polish. And we embed into the genetic coding of our family line And our hearts become the nexus of those two aspects of self. And that's the alchemical pot that we've come to work with. And so, you know, what we experience in the first 5 to 7 years of our lives sets us up for the journey. And, you know, so many, as I said in the book, of the people that walk the path of the rose, it's not been an easy journey. We've come into very dysfunctional family patterns, or no family, or, you know, there's been an element of either black sheep, you know, not the one that didn't fit in, or the one that was cast out. Actually, there is a breaking apart to bring back together in truth. And that for me is the Magdalene path, that she taught us through her teachings that actually ascension is not up, it's in, and it's how much of your light, your God light, can you embody? How much of it can you bring in? And that's the path of the rose.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the Magdalene, because the roses came when a lot of us here on Instagram and in the kind of virtual community, we were doing Walking with Mary, and that's organized by Hetty-Ann Grobler. She did this beautiful Mysteries of Mary tarot deck, and that also involves obviously Mary Magdalene and the Sisterhood of the Rose as well, and just this embodiment of that work. And when the roses came, was just around the same time, so I was just blown away. But
fabulous.
That's so nice. But if I was to be a great skeptic and think, okay, this is all great when I, you know, see a rose, but will the same kind of energy, will it work through the card? Like, how can you kind of, what would you say to a skeptic like this? Like, is this really, can it work?
Well, I mean, all I know is that, you know, there are 1,000 sets that have gone around the world at this point, and they've woven with all sorts of different therapies. And the feedback that I have of, you know, because a lot of this is, you know, it's like the proof of the pudding is, has this created some change for someone? And in which case, we can look at that and say, well, it's a placebo. You know, it was going to happen anyway. On the other hand, there is a scientific aspect to this work. So there's several levels here that I can explain. One is the fact that the rose, her sacred geometry is pentagram, and when her 5 sepals that are around the bud open, they don't open consecutively. They open in the way that you would draw a 5-pointed star. Her blossom then explodes from that bud in a geometry that's called the golden mean. Now, in that 5-pointed star, the geometry of the golden mean is embedded in it, and this golden mean was known to the ancients. It was one of the tools that they used when they were creating sacred space. They would make a room to this particular ratio, and it's a ratio of 1 to 1.61803. It's when you look at it in a spiral, just a minute.
Yep.
When you look at it in a spiral, it looks a little bit like this, which is a nautilus. This nautilus is not quite 1 to 1.61803, but you can see where the incremental growth is. And if you can imagine, this can expand exponentially and compress exponentially. There is nothing that constricts this. It's whew. So the rose embedded in her has this kind of geometry. Now, it is very interesting to me that the planet Venus, in her dance around the heavens, creates what's known as a rosabella. And she takes 8 years to do this journey. and she comes in to create the Rosabella petals every 1.618 years, right? So you can start to see where the rose and her sacred geometry and the planet Venus dance together. And you can look, anybody that's interested can Google the path of Venus, and they will see what's called the Rosabella of Venus. It's also was really fascinating to me when I came across a physicist called Dan Winter, who lives in the south of France, and he's got a website, I think, called goldenmean.info. And I did a study tour with him in 2006 in the south of France. And it was a grail. It was a grail tour, but he was doing a lot of lecturing around sacred geometry. And he had also created a program on his computer called a Bliss Tuner. And this Bliss Tuner proved scientifically that the heart in love resonates to 1 to 1.61803.
Oh, wow.
So you start to see that the rose, Venus, and our heart field, when it resonates to a love, resonates to the golden mean. Now, the golden mean is the growth proportion of our bodies. It's the natural harmonic of our bodies. So you can see that when we resonate to love, when we can stay in the love frequency 24/7, we cannot get sick. Because with every beat of our hearts, that frequency goes through our bodies. The roses for me are pure love codes. They've come to do nothing more than to remind us of that, and of beauty and of nature, and to illuminate for us anything that's not love. Anything that that can show us where we need to pay attention, where we need to work. And also when we put them on our bodies, they connect, and particularly around the higher heart chakra and around the heart field. But you could lay these roses anywhere on the body, and the spin, the oscillation of the rose will start to remind the body of its natural blueprint for health and vitality. You can also use these roses and put a glass of water on the rose card, and this is called epilepsy. There's a scientific name for the movement of the code, the frequency of the rose into the water. And of course, this is a lot of the work that was done by Masaru Emoto, who said that, water carries memory. So the roses didn't come as a tarot deck. They came as a pathway of inner mastery to help us on our journey home to love, particularly from the feminine perspective, particularly for us as women. This pathway of love, this pathway of beauty. I really see the rose path as a path of beauty, truth, and love.
It's interesting. I think I've seen one of your presentations. I think it's on your YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to see it, I think you can guys go to Sandy's channel. I will link it below in the description box. And you were, I think, dowsing. Somebody was holding a rose, and then they were holding a card. And that's how the energy body expanded when they were sitting with the rose. Yeah. So I think that was interesting too. And I think I use pendulum sometimes, but I'm still kind of, does it work? Does it not work? How does it work? Can I? But I definitely so. And I don't know what you think about it, but now I can't remember exactly, but I think it was just changing how my pendulum turned. So I was lying on my bed and I was using my pendulum like this above me, you know, so it was very kind of homemade test. But I was like, if I was, let's say, he was the easiest to see around my heart chakra. So let's say it was turning anti-clockwise, and then I put the one of the heart chakra roses cards on me, and it was changing the direction. Is it possible?
So, you know, again, this, I know, I have had no agenda as to what I have just followed what the roses have guided me to do. And one of the Rose One classes that I was teaching, and I've been sharing this work in the UK and the USA, New York, New Jersey, in Arizona, in Orlando, Florida. So there's been quite a lot of work on the East Coast, but also here. But on one of the trips, I got my pendulum out and I had someone on the couch in a class, and something prompted me. Something said, you know, do this.
Do it.
And I went up through the body, checking the direction of spin of each of the chakras. And then I put the Rose Oracle deck up because I teach it as a healing pathway, a healing modality. And the Rose Oracle cards went on the body, and I then redowsed. And what they did is they spun both ways. So if you can imagine that from the base chakra, we have energies, masculine and feminine energies, that roll up through the body, and they cross over at the chakra points. So when we douse and and the spin goes one way or another way, it's either clockwise or anti-clockwise. So it's either feminine anti-clockwise or masculine clockwise. All of the esoteric schools, all of the mystery schools, all of the work with Tantra, for instance, has been about bringing those two energy streams in the body into balance. And for me, this is the grail. This is what we're seeking, because when those two energies come into balance, a third energy is birthed that is greater than, you know, it birthed in the So what happens is, when these energies go on the body, they remind that chakra of its original optimum frequency. So what it does is it reminds the body of the balance between masculine and feminine. And it does that all the way up through the body. So the more we work with the roses, and you can put this rose deck on your body as self-healing. You don't need anybody else to do it for you. The book tells you which chakra that rose, those first 11 roses, go into. And you can just lay down and put the rose energies on the body. And the thing with the roses is they are pure love. They can do no harm. You know, they can do no harm. And that, for me, is a joy.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I actually remembered, Sandy, because I think I put this post with me dowsing on Instagram. I will check, but I'm pretty sure that on heart chakra it was going both ways, and on the other ones it was kind of going the opposite direction of what I checked without the card. So, but I remember I was surprised because I've never seen my pendulum doing the thing that it goes a little bit one way. And now you kind of explained about this, so thank you, because I was going like, why is it doing the one this way, one? But then I thought of the, you know, eternity sign also.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But this place of weaving the two energies together, we are all made up of this dance of masculine and feminine. And in the esoteric schools and the mystery schools, were, you know, their teaching was about sacred union. It was about this inner marriage within that allows us to come into the fullness of our journey as human beings, so that we're not playing out any other dance. we're not out of
Yeah.
balance, and that allows for our relationships to be in optimum balance too. So the rose path is a path of mastery. It's a path of inner mastery at its highest level and at its purest level. And yet at another level, you know, I've got NYPD Blue police officers in New York that work with the Rose Oracle with traumatized police officers, because, you know, they can't use any other ways in which to get in, but most of them have got a memory of an aunt in Brooklyn, or, you know, that you can start a dialogue. And so many people working within the therapeutic community weave them with oils, with massage, with Reiki. When they go on the body, they make it very, very easy to remove, you know, congestion, energetic congestion on the body. They are a great, yeah.
Yeah, I purchased your course of the roses, which you offer on your website, and I'm nearly done with it. I'm like on the last set of classes, and I started using, because I use tarot in like a healing, or tarot and oracle cards in a healing way, and I started pulling like in the beginning, because, you know, I'm still kind of getting familiar, and so I'm pulling one card for I used it for many clients already, and sometimes it's just such a confirmation of, for example, because I use astrology as well, like of astrological, like let's say chironic wound, or anything that like I can see that from the aspects can create some struggle in life, and often the wound, like the rose angels comes up with, like, you know, just pinpoint, boom, it's exactly the same wounding or the same set of lessons that's most probably you will be going through. And, you know, people like recently I was doing it with my friend, and our whole session was about mother wound, and I said, like, well, let me just pull one rose card, maybe that will be about healing, maybe it will be about confirming this message, let's see. And we pulled, I can't remember now which one is about mother wound, but I think rose 11 maybe she pulled. Yeah, exactly. No, rose 10, this one.
Rose 10.
Yeah, rose 10. And it's like I'm reading, and if you have drawn this rose today, you are being reminded of your connection to your mother. And we're like, okay. So I'm like, take a photo.
You know, but at the end of the day, all of this is taking us home, isn't it? It's bringing us home to honor ourselves. You know, the foundation point of all of this is self-love, self-value, self-esteem.
Yeah.
And for the heart to be lit by what we do and how we are in the world. I love the fact that, you know, you get on an aircraft and they say, you know, if anything happens, we'll drop the mask, but put your mask on first before asking, you know, putting a mask on somebody else. And it's like, we can't take anybody anywhere we haven't been. So we have to do, you know, our work and come to this place of having our own heart flame alight, and then we can light the heart flames of others, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to share the magic of who we are, and to be lights and way showers and guides for others, not in a follow me sort of way, but
be yourself.
Let me remind you of who you are. Let me remind you of this amazing soul that you are through my light, you know?
Yeah, I saw this quote on your website actually by Rumi, and it says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful to like sum up what we were saying here about just this, I don't know, to me it's also like this passion of life, creativity, that kind of zest for, you know, like this kind of a little bit childlike energy in it too.
But this is what I'm saying, when these two energies, when the masculine feminine energies come into balance, and they weave effortlessly, so that we can call within ourselves to the different qualities that we need, because as women, it's a very receptive energy. This is the work that Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, it invites us to open, to be receptive. But we need the inner masculine to be able to take that energy out into the world. Otherwise, we just sit with it. You know, there's a receptive and an active dynamic. But when they come into balance, what's birthed is the divine child. It is that childlike innocence and creative aspect that in a relationship with another is like the glue. It's like the glue that both parties dive into. But if we're looking at a physical child, it takes both those energies to birth a physical child, and it does take both of those energies either within us or within a partnership to birth a business. This is the magic. And I'm absolutely certain that this was part of what Mary Magdalene and the Master Yeshua, Master Jesus, came to show us, because he saw her as his equal.
Yeah.
She was the one that he gifted teachings that he didn't give to the disciples. She was the one that held that vessel with him. And regardless of the question mark as to whether there was a royal bloodline and there was children or whatever, I feel that this is the path in which women are being asked to stand up, and this is why so many walking the path of the rose and have got such a strong connection to the Magdalene or Lady Nada or Mother Mary. These are such, even Isis, they all are part of the Sisterhood of the Rose. They're all part of that coding, that frequency.
But I find it fascinating in this oracle deck that it has, it brings forth sacred feminine especially, but it does speak about balancing the masculine and feminine, because I somehow, sense that we went through a long period of the goddess culture. And I read somewhere that it was like, maybe it became like this devouring mother, this kind of over powering mother at some way, and we had to cut the umbilical cord, and then we went into all this patriarchal stuff, and all this time when patriarchy took over. And now I feel like we really start slowly shifting into that hopefully child stage, when we actually smarter now and more like awakened to know that we need both. Like we can't just go now back to the goddess only, and it's just like we need to have the sacred marriage, basically. So that's what I love about this. Sometimes I feel sorry for the guys now, because I'm thinking, oh my God, like we all like on the rise, but let's take them with us.
Well,
but of course, this is only like, the physical, yeah.
But the issue is here that when the roses said that they come to heal the Magdalene wound in both men and women, but that it was always the women that sought the healing first for our children, for our families, for our communities, and they also said that because if you chose to incarnate at this point, we're clearing off 2,000 years of patriarchal journey where the feminine has not been honored for what she brings. You've put your head above the parapet, and it probably didn't end too well. So each one of us is clearing that program off. And a lot of women either went into their masculine to, we had all of the shoulder pads and the trouser suits, and I can drink as much as you, I can have sex as much as you, and I can get as far as you in the boardroom.
Yeah.
But we lost our feminine power, our true, authentic, feminine, wise woman that sits on the heart solar plexus. And that, for me, is the pathway, that the evolutionary pathway of homecoming for us as women is back into that authentic, heart-centered, compassionate warrior energy, and clearing off the patterns that we've played of passive aggressive, of drama dances in order to get our needs met, that enable us to hold our menfolk in a safe, non-drama way, and that invites them, when they're ready, to start to come to their own heart. And if you ask a man what he thinks about something, men on the whole are very solutions orientated.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do about it? Well, but I think but actually most men have whole issues around being in the heart field because it's chaotic. The emotions are chaotic, and it takes them out of being strong and being able to be protective and powerful. But what they realize once they start to be held in a way where they can unpack the traumas that they've experienced on the heart field, they become super powerful, super attractive, because they've got a language and an energy that enables us as women to feel safe. And if you look at the dynamic, even the yin yang symbol, yin wants to embed in yang wants to support yin. There is this process here that goes on in a dynamic in a relationship, and we as women need to know that we are safe and we are held within the heart of the man, and that allows us to open up in a totally different way sexually, because it allows it's the same with same-sex relationships and marriage. One will always hold a stronger polarity of the feminine or the masculine within the dance of the relationship. So it's this place of the holding, of being held and feeling safe with the masculine, that really allows us to blossom. So it's either got to be an internal place where we have balanced our own internal masculine feminine, so that our feminine essence is supported by a very present masculine power within the body, that just holds that feminine to blossom. The other way you can look at this, which takes us more back into the Rosicrucian teachings, is as above, so below. Balancing masculine and feminine within the body allows the rose of the heart to open. And that heart opens one petal at a time, revealing more and more of her golden essence. So this is, it's a sacred pathway where we honor ourselves and we honor our lives and we honor the journey here. But ultimately it brings us home to the heart and home to the rose that is the essence of the heart when she opens.
So beautiful. So I'm just going to ask you about the future plans, because I know that you have expanded the deck, and thank you for this beautiful conversation. I think we have to shortly finish up, but I would love you to tell me how you expanded the deck. What was the voice in the shower? What did it say this time?
Yeah, so between 2010 and 2014, 5 different sets of the Oracle deck came into being. And, as I say, at each point, I didn't know there was any more coming. But when the last set, the Rose Mars set, came together, the guidance in my head was, okay, we're ready now, print us. Write the book and print us. And I just did that. And I actually had the opportunity to launch it at the United Nations in New York. I went and spoke to a group at the United Nations on the Rose and the Path of Peace.
Oh, cool.
And beyond that, I had no idea that there was any more. I certainly felt the Rose work was complete. And I went off to teach in Sedona in Arizona. And actually that's the rose I can't find. and because I was going to show you. And so what happened was, no, it's not there. How interesting.
Escaped.
So it's escaped.
Maybe
So,
don't show me.
When I was sat quietly, it was sat quietly that one day, not in the shower, funnily enough, and the roses said, you know, there are another 4 of us, that oh, there it is, there she is. Oh. So I was in the middle of Sedona, in a shopping mall, actually. On the last day, we went to look at a gallery, and in the middle of this shopping place, there was a rose garden with goddess statues and loads of roses, and this rose was going, photograph me, do not miss me. And my big camera was in the car, which was quite a walk away, and I thought, nah, I'll just take a picture of her on my iPad. So I crept across the garden and took a picture of her, and she's the only picture in the deck that wasn't done with my Canon camera. But anyway, so we got home, and she said, oh, and there's 4 more of us to come together. There's 4 cosmic roses that are the Gaia Gateway, the Earth Star, the Soul Star, and the Stellar Gateway, that create double vesicles of light around the body. And I'm like, oh, really? So those all came together. And then the Earth Star and the Soul Star open to say that there's a Heart Star. There is a Heart Star that completes this whole work. And my sense is that as we evolve, it is the Soul Star that holds our imprint for the incarnation from our Akashic records. The Earth Star, which holds our physicality connected into the Earth grids, Mother Earth, and is connected to Rose 1 and Rose 6, that hold the imprint, the template for this incarnation, physically and sexually and creatively and financially. They hold what Jung would call the individuation. Who am I inside the tribe? And this connects into the Earth Star. The Heart Star, as she revealed herself to me, has got 3 elements. It's the threefold flame of Christ consciousness, of the higher heart field. It's the dance of love, wisdom, and power. Wow. And those 3 roses complete the 7 levels of mastery. And interestingly, the last rose is the power rose, and that has been my soul journey this lifetime, has been to find my voice and to really empower myself. So it's delicious, really. It's, you know, this place of completion for us when we can master our inner dance between love, wisdom, and power. Power and wisdom without love, you know, has nothing for us. Love and wisdom without power doesn't take us anywhere, and love and power without the wisdom can be dangerous.
Wow,
so
true.
This place of lighting, holding this Christ consciousness flame, which I believe is what Mary Magdalene and the Master Yeshua came to tell us. In fact, all of the masters do. If you look at the Sufi mystics, it's all a path of love. Yeah. And that's what the rose guides us to.
Wow, so how many more cards is it?
So it's 52 in the deck now. It's
the new set is you did the heart gate as 3 cards, yes? 3 roses, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's the 4
so
cosmic roses. So it's 7 roses beyond the 45 that are in the original deck.
Wow,
so it makes 52 roses, 7 levels of the work, and that feels, you know, if you look at the teachings, what it said, that the Master Yeshua cleared 7 levels from Mary Magdalene, or cleared her through, or she moved through 7 levels. whether you look at it as the 7 veils, the 7 energy feels really potent, but this is what they've told me. I'm just the vehicle, I'm the conduit. The roses speak to me through the lens of my camera, and I just follow.
But that makes so much sense, knowing, the system which I studied with you, and now having that cosmic kind of container added on top of it. I think that's perfect. This is like pure perfection now. And I loved what you said about that heart roses. So true. Wow, that's beautiful.
And we, if we are moving into this, for many, the journey is about activating this new earth template, this new sense of being able to be activated and incarnated at this sort of frequency level has not been done before. So many of us in our journey of clearing our traumas and our stories to hold more light are part of this journey. We're part of helping this new phase come to being.
Yeah, definitely. But that's a really important point, that we have to do the work. Like, it's not going to just I mean, maybe with grace you maybe can just go boom, lightning stroke, but that doesn't happen very often. Maybe you had to work for it a very hard previous lifetime.
Yeah, it is, but it's the path of it's the path of the heart, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Before we, because I wanted to ask you also about your Kickstarter that you're planning, but before I want to finish with this, but can you maybe say like a few words about how can we use the deck? Like I asked the question, how can we benefit from the Rose Oracle? Like, if somebody purchases it, like, what would you advise? Like, how it's good to work with it, like with the cards themselves?
Well, you can use them just as guidance. As you would do, as you get to know each of the roses, you can do a spread, a reading, like you would do with any other deck of cards. The other thing you can do is to, I've got people all around the world that just will pull a rose for a focus each day. And I mean, I have been known to turn up in a store with I'll put it with me, and if I'm working with it, I'll carry on working. I'll put it down my jumper. You can put it by your bed, put it under your pillow, and she will work with you. When you have looked at her, she has already made a link. There is a consciousness to these. I have seen people, even in exhibitions, if I've done Mind, Body, Soul or Mind, Body, Spirit in London, I've had people that have come to the stand, have gone around the deck, picked one up and just burst into tears. So they offer us a shift. They offer us that. And you can, as they work them with water, that they're a bit like bark flower remedies. You can just work them with water in that pure consciousness of wanting to release suffering, wanting to release the pain of whatever you're experiencing. Or you can, if you've got a project that you're working with, you pull 3 or 4 cards and just lay them on the documents for the project, and ask the roses and their consciousness to help you manifest this project. Or you can use them for remote healing. If you've got a picture of a loved one that is struggling in any way or is sick, find a picture of the loved one and shuffle the deck, pull a rose and put that with the picture, and ask the rose to send her blessings and her love to help this person. There are all sorts of ways in which we can work with the rose consciousness to benefit humanity or benefit our loved ones. I've always got, in my office here, I've always got rose grids that I'm doing for people. You know, people contact me and say, you know, can you put a rose grid up for so-and-so, you know?
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning that I notice often people get discouraged when they don't have any special feelings or effects straight away. So I always say that, like, think about it as developing a relationship with somebody, like give it time, and also maybe curb your expectations of how you think it should work. Let it just do its work and have trust, which is often hard.
Yeah, but it's also to do with receptivity. I had a big lesson with the pranic healing master, Master Choa Kok Sui, who I was fortunate enough to do some direct training with, you know, actually with him rather than one of his teachers. And he demonstrated beautifully I went to Vancouver Island to meet him in 2000, and he demonstrated so clearly the fact that no healing takes place, or we don't get the fullness of healing unless we are actually receptive. And for some of us, there is an agenda to stay stuck because we gain some kind of attention or whatever. If someone is genuine in their desire to heal or desire to change their circumstances, they can do it. And they just need to understand where the blocks are. And the roses sometimes will just show us where the blocks are. You know? And we have to then take action. It's not a passive thing.
Yeah, exactly.
The universe says to us, you know, help me, take a step.
It always reminds me of this joke with the, you know, lottery ticket, like, God, help me win a lottery ticket. God, help me win a lottery ticket. Finally, this voice, buy and take.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So tell us now about the Kickstarter. Like, what are you planning to do? Like, because obviously it must be expensive to print all the decks. So do you think Kickstarter would be the best way to gather funds?
I self-funded the first print run.
Yeah.
I had, interestingly, my father was the one that set the wound pattern for me this lifetime, and it was the small inheritance that I had from him that paid for the printing of the deck, which is, it's just delicious, isn't it? So this time, I'm not in that fortunate position. So I'm going to do a crowdfunding campaign that by the time this goes out, the crowdfunder will be actually active. So it will be active from the beginning of August until the middle of September, and people can pre-order their deck, or they can pre-order. There's lots of pledges on the page, so they can pre-order a deck, and they can organise a healing session or a reading or whatever.
Will you do some of your beautiful scarves?
Yes.
Oh, good.
So the scarves and this one behind me, so they make really great wall hangings. I stretch them over canvas as well. But this one is I am inner strength. So we can create magic in our spaces. We need to have spaces that really support us and remind us of who we are. But so there'll be a variety. There'll be rose mats and in the offer as well. And
So what about people, for example, who already purchased the deck and they would like to get the extra, the extra set of the cards because they don't want to buy another deck? Is this possible? Will you do something where the extension pack can be bought? Because I know that quite a few of my friends got the deck, but we have this, the 45 cards. So is it possible?
The challenge to this is the fact that I'm not using the same printer this time.
Okay.
And I had that was the problem that I had with the extending the deck with just the 4 with the cosmic roses. They don't match. They don't match color-wise. They don't match weight-wise. And that's why I had to make it really clear on the website. If you buy these, these 4 match, but they don't match the deck. And these are 5 years old now. You see, this is the problem. And so I had the choice of just printing 7 roses and some kind of extra book, but that means that they wouldn't go in the box.
Yeah.
It's been a minefield to try and work my way around what's the best thing to do.
I think if I can just say something, because for example, I know that most of people who use the deck don't keep it in the box anyway. Like myself, like I just have a bag because I keep using it all the time. So, and I use my book is separate as well. I think it's maybe a good idea to. Yeah, I hear you. It is a bit of a.
It's really tricky.
It is.
The only way that I have felt that I could work it is that I'm going to have some beautiful bags printed to go with the next set, so that there are silk bags to keep the rose energies in. And I thought that actually for anybody that had already got an oracle set, that I would gift that as part of to assist, shall we say. Or I may do a discount code. I don't know yet what I can do.
I was thinking of like, you don't even have to, like for people who, for example, bought the old set, you don't have to send a separate book. You could just digitally send the extra few pages of the information for the rose, because it would be a waste to like just throw away the book just for the few extra pages. And I know that like, in Aura Soma tarot deck, they were constantly adding new cards. And also at some point they did print a new book, but the booklet was, like expanding like every 2 months or something when they did the new bottle. So they also were just sending the virtual information, and then we could print it out or just use it, So I think that could go for the book, but for the set of 7, I probably personally wouldn't mind so much to, even if the bags would be a bit different, but I would like to have the opportunity to get the extra cards. Maybe they could be reduced a little bit, just so, because they wouldn't be the whole set. I don't know. Yeah, it is not easy.
It is. It's
you'll
really,
think about it. Yeah, but
I'm just exploring what is possible.
Yeah, because sometimes printing 7 cards each, it's also yeah.
And and I'm also mindful that I want to honor the people that have already got the deck. And as I say, there's 1,000 of those gone around the world. So
interesting. Anyway, we're going to maybe we can chat about it after I finish recording anyway. But thank you so much. This gone like my plan for this new interview series after summer was to keep them like short, like half an hour, 40 minutes. But I'm pretty sure that some of them it's not possible, because I could seriously just listen to what you're saying for another hour and I would not be bored. So I'm hoping that all the listeners enjoyed it as much as I did as well. And thank you for sharing your knowledge, Sandy, so generously. And it's just really interesting, and I think maybe for some even a new approach and something they haven't thought about in this way. So thank you so much for being here.
The delight. I mean, it's it is the way of the future, vibrational medicine, in whatever way that it comes, whether it's sound medicine or in these kinds of vibrational tools. This is one of the ways we can help ourselves. So I am really grateful to
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you loved it. Let us know in the comments, and all the information about Sandy's Kickstarter and about her website, when you can also check out her classes, and just a lot of information is there for free as well. You can check in the description box and see how that works for you. Okay, thanks for watching, and I speak to you soon. Bye.